We recently learned that self-driving cars were susceptible to prompt injection, and as it turns out, they're a lot less safe than we thought. They're susceptible to being hacked both digitally and in practice, and it is a real problem. They should probably not be on the road. Now, I know a lot of people are fans of self-driving cars and say they get in less accidents than actual people behind the wheel. First off, we don't have enough data to say that because they haven't really been on the scene for that long. And a lot of those statistics come from a laboratory setting, so a simulation. But they can also be tricked in simulations as well in reality. So you see this little diagram up here, there's our self-driving car. An object on the side is put outside of a vehicle to convince it that something is coming in its direction and it will stop. This could make people quite susceptible to, say, carjacking or get in accidents. In other words, these cars are not people. They see the world with LiDAR, and they can't accurately parse what an object actually is. They do not know the difference. So, I mean, you can just hold up a sign that says proceed or go, and the LLM that are running them will just go through a red light, even if there's people in the way, because somebody thought it was a good idea to have self-driving vehicles 2,000-pound objects run by an LLM. Which, on the one hand, is just incredibly silly because there is much better artificial intelligence out there that can run vehicles. It just seems companies wanted to go with the cheapest option, which is LLMs like GPT. Now, here's how I think this actually ended up happening. We had companies that were pushing autonomous vehicles, the ability to autopilot, and those were pushed as being safer than a person because an AI clearly isn't going to get distracted. Yes, they can be. People then invested an enormous amount of money into getting these things on the road, and they were pushed forward given simulation testing rather than being actually tested in practice. And this is one of the reasons that we don't have a lot of medicine. Even though we have things that work very well in mice models, we haven't pushed them to the point of actually being used for people. That is, that there could be much safer options just down the road, but since you ended up pushing a medication forward, it ended up getting a bad rap, and it pushes back the field decades. And that's what I think is happening with self-driving cars. They're not safe, they're incredibly vulnerable, and yet they're on the road anyway. One thing I don't understand is why these guys have such good PR. I mean, what I hear from people is that they are safer, they get in less accidents, and you know what? Maybe that's true, but let's see how they behave when we have whole cities driving with them. In fact, I'm pretty sure no one's going to get anywhere. Now, contrary to what you might think about me, I actually am not against self-driving cars. I think they could be extremely safe, and I think ultimately they will get better than humans behind the wheel. In fact, I think it's quite likely that self-driving cars will outnumber people at some point. We also know that we can make robotics that sees and reacts faster than the human eye. However, that is not what we are seeing with self-driving cars. And one of the things that bothers me is that they can't be ticketed. I mean, cops have tried to pull them over, but we haven't quite figured out the laws around that. I mean, the company itself could be responsible for gross negligence, but I don't like having a different tier for a robot driving a car. What do you think? Are they the future? Are they safe now?